Hey there, my name is ZW Buckley and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk to you about MIDI controllers, why it's the most important piece of gear you are ever going to own, and how you can get the absolute most out of it, because let's be real, I don't think any of us are actually getting the most out of our MIDI controllers. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably bought your first MIDI controller, something probably like this, because you wanted to play some keys or hit some pads. And that's probably about it. Unlike a physical instrument in which input directly equals output, MIDI controllers are filled with a lot more friction. MIDI controllers can require a lot of setup, but then they let you do whatever you want, and that's both amazing and horrifying. And again, there is a lot of friction in the process. But you know what every MIDI controller lets you do without friction? Play keys and hit drums. And so that's what we buy them for. But if that's the only thing you're using your MIDI controller for, then you are leaving so much on the table. Let me explain. Take a look at this piece of sheet music. The first thing that you're going to notice are all the notes on the page. But if you take a second look, there are all of these other markings that have everything to do with how the music is played. And if we take away those markings, we take away half of what makes that piece of music. And that's because everything that we just took away has something to do with expression. And that's not simply the notes that are played, but how those notes are played. And where does that expression come from? It comes from us, our hands, mouth, feet, cheeks, whatever you're using to play that instrument. When we produce music in the DAW, we actually face an uphill battle when it comes to expression. Things that are just effortless when we actually play notes on an instrument become barriers when we produce because we don't actually have to play any of the notes. But MIDI controllers make it easy to make things more expressive. And better yet, it's easy to make our music expressive in ways that are intuitive and native and unique to working in a DAW. Things like sound design, effects, and processing all become gestures that we can employ in our music making. And as a result, things that might normally fall flat completely come alive. So let's take this simple ARP for example. I have 8 parameters mapped to the encoders on push 3, and all of them give me immediate sonic control. So I've got my low pass filter, the shape of oscillator 1, two envelope controls, one for the modulation, one for the amplifier, some tonal parameters for FM, and for the noise oscillator, and then reverb level, and volume. And so then I let Ableton Live sequence the notes while I focus on performing with the encoders in a way that makes this feel so much more human than if I had just simply automated it with a line. This worked so well and feels so good because I took the time to figure out the most essential parameters and map them onto the push. And that's the hardest part about figuring out mappings for MIDI controllers, is figuring out which parameters feel really good and which ones just don't. I find that the most effective MIDI controller mappings are the ones that deal with the three big properties of sound: frequency, amplitude, and time. And so that keeps us in the domain of things like filters, pitch shifting, amplifier envelopes, and various modulation controls. And as a result, these are parameters that give you a wide expressive range, and that's what you want to have at your fingertips. For example, hi-hats are usually pretty set it and forget it type of stuff, but they don't necessarily have to be. In the case of this rack here, I have a parameter mapped to each of the encoders that help make the hi-hats so much more expressive and performable. I have the amp attack and release. I've got a copy of erosion following the simpler device in this instrument rack that I am then mapping the amount and the frequency of the wide noise setting. I've got a filter cutoff, an LFO that's modulating a number of the parameters you see here, a transposition control to pitch shift around the hi-hats, and then a volume control. Now these are all controls that deal with frequency, amplitude, and time in some capacity. And as a result, they're all awesome gestures for controlling with MIDI controllers. And then something as simple as a hi-hat becomes truly expressive in your hands. Once you know how to create effective MIDI mappings, then it becomes about finding the controller that feels the most expressive to you. And generally you've got three categories to choose from: your keyboard-based controllers, your grid-based controllers, and your pad-based controllers. But those categories are expanding wildly every single day. That being said, you don't really need to choose a new instrument. Old MIDI controllers are great too. I mean, take for example this Akai MPD32, which is literally inching closer to 20 years old every single day, but it is still such a killer controller because it has pads, it has dials, and it has sliders, and this is more than enough to handle your expressive needs for a production or performance or anything in between. There's a concept in design called affordances, and it essentially just boils down to what does an object allow you to do. And in the case of something like the MPD32, it affords me the ability to push a pad, adjust a dial, or tweak a fader. And the cool thing about mappable MIDI controllers is that I get to decide for myself what gestures feel great at what control. For me, something like a beat repeat feels really natural with a pad, whereas something like a filter isn't going to feel as good on a pad. It's going to feel better on a fader. But you get to decide for yourself with your own controllers, and that's just the awesome part about MIDI controllers. When I was getting started producing music, I suffered from a lot of gear acquisition syndrome because I thought the one thing that was holding me back from making great music was my equipment. And as I've grown as a producer and artist, I've come to realize that my problem wasn't the number of tools available to me, but the depth of my knowledge and understanding of those tools. And I think nothing represents that better than the humble MIDI controller. I hope this video encourages you to go deeper with your MIDI controller and to really commit and invest the time in yourself to fully learn and know this tool. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I'm working really hard to grow this channel to 50,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, and it is your support entirely that makes it possible. And if you want to go further with your support of this channel, consider signing up for my Patreon. I've got a ton of bonus videos, Ableton Live presets, and other things available for you there to check out. The link is in the description. Till next time.